Hi, everybody. Good morning. It is 9 o'clock on the East Coast, and it is already a rainy day in East Tennessee. That's where I am located. I am Kristina Dulaney. I am part of this new exciting network. Good morning. Good morning, Jessica. Good morning. I forgot to put my lipstick on. You reminded me. Oh well. We're so excited about this network, and it is going to be a beautiful collaboration with individuals, organizations, change makers, champions, patient advocates, and patient leaders. And it's going to be a beautiful thing, and we're really excited to get that launched this week. So stay tuned, stick with us. We have an amazing lineup today. And for the rest of the week, we are kicking it off strong. So we're really excited. Hey, everybody. And we have this morning, Jenn. I think I saw her join, so I think she needs to request to join. Hey, everybody. So, yeah, Jenn, I think it'll say request to join the live. Let's see. Oh, wait a minute. Doo-doo-doo. Here we go. Now, here comes Jenn. Here she comes. Just take a minute. There she is.
Hi,
Hi, good morning.
how are you?
Good, how are you?
I'm good, thanks.
Good. How is it? How's the weather in New Jersey this morning?
It's a little chilly today, but it's beautiful sunny day and it's supposed to warm up. So any day without rain, although, that's going to happen. Any day that we can get outside, I feel like is very good for my mental health.
Yes, I agree. It's very good when you can say go play outside.
Yes.
So we're really excited to have everybody. Again, I'm Kristina Dulaney. I am the founder of Cherished Mom and a postpartum psychosis survivor. And we're really excited about this network. We're really excited to have Jenn here this morning. So I will let her share more about her. And yeah.
All right. So thank you so much for having me on here. So my journey seems like, although it wasn't that long, that many months, I guess, it still felt like it was 2 years off of my life, as you can imagine. I know having gone through it as well. So I will try to do like the quick run through of it. But on my Instagram and Facebook, I have my entire story. I shouldn't say entire because I'm not finished yet, but I broke my whole journey up into different parts in hopes of spreading awareness and breaking the stigma and really paying it forward, because while I would never wish any of the PMADs on anyone, I wouldn't say that I'm grateful that it did happen to me, but I just feel that it did happen for a reason. And now is my time to, pay it forward and make a difference with all that I've experienced and that I've learned, and really just educate, because I feel like if I was educated in what this really can look like and what the symptoms really could be, and just to know that like this is so common, I feel like I would not have suffered in silence, and I would not have been Googling schizophrenia thinking that that's what I was experiencing, because it just wasn't normal. And obviously if I felt that way, like how many other moms out there or pregnant women are feeling or have felt the same way. So I hope that in sharing my story with the world, that not only will I help spread awareness and break the stigma, but truly just educate expecting moms, moms in general, especially moms that already have children that think that, like myself, well, I didn't have this with my first, so I'm good. And that could not be more wrong, as you know. And also educate significant others, because they're like your first line of support. And also family members, because sometimes you cannot, I think most times actually, you're not able to advocate for yourself during this time. And you really need that village to stand by you and help advocate for you.
Absolutely.
And, in sharing my story and putting myself out there, there have been so many people that have found my story, which I'm so, so grateful for, because it's like we've instantly connected. And they'll just message me and say, like, oh my gosh, I'm experiencing this right now. And I had no idea that it was this, or I had no idea that it was called intrusive thoughts. And it's just like that validation that I think every mom needs. Um, and what breaks my heart is that how so many of them find me is they're lost. There is nowhere for them to turn to for support. So they go on social media and search hashtags.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
that's kind of how they're finding like their, diagnosis and their support. And I'm grateful that they were able to find me or other advocates. But that is a huge problem, I think, in maternal mental health and probably mental health in general, that it should not take moms to search hashtags to find that they're not alone and that there are other people like you out there. So I am on this journey now. I found a new passion and I am ready to change the world, and specifically like the education piece of it that I think is a huge gap. And I think that's kind of like where we need to start.
Absolutely. I could not agree more. That's, one of my huge passions as a registered nurse and a survivor is the passion piece, but also the education. And I think that's
Mm-hmm.
where we're missing the mark. We're trying to educate the providers, but we're not educating the moms to know where to reach out to, who to reach out to, and get the support that they need. And I interviewed you on my podcast
Yep.
a few weeks ago, and one of the things that did resonate, which what you just said, was moms are searching hashtags, and we're in 2020. Like, why are we searching hashtags to
Yeah.
get the support that we need? Um, so we hope that we can build this network, raise more awareness, and build community and relationships and more support for everybody.
Yep.
And I think I told you this before, that it's so bitter. It's bittersweet to me when people reach out and they're like, I went through this. What can I do? Because I hate that they went through it, but I'm glad that
Yep.
they're finding a passion to make a difference and make a change.
Yeah.
Um, so I appreciate you being here. And I guess just share whatever you'd like with getting treatment, seeking help.
Okay. Yeah, totally. So um, for those of you that are on that may not know me, so my name is Jenn and I live in New Jersey. I am married. I have two little girls. So I have a 3-year-old, and I have an almost 1-year-old this Thursday, um, which is hitting me hard because it's like I think back to like all that I've gone through this year. Um, and she's like my little obsession. And I look at where I am now and it's like a celebration, but also like I can't believe my baby's turning a year. Um, and I shared this yesterday in my live as well on my page that um, both of us come from very supportive families. Our families live close, so they're always over our house, always willing to help out, trying to kick us out to go on dates, whatever, just so that they can be with our girls. And I say that because, like, my biggest message is that this does not discriminate and it can happen to anyone. Um, and I think from the outside, like, because I didn't know that either, I remember saying to myself that this would never happen to me in the hospital because I've never had depression. I'm so happy, not realizing, again, these facts that nobody really tells you. But yeah, like from the outside looking in, it's kind of like, well, she, has a beautiful house. She has, a husband that's supportive. She has two beautiful and healthy kids. Her family's always over and helping. And, but it doesn't matter. And honestly, in that moment, it didn't matter. And I hate saying that, but like it was just a horrible, dark time and none of that mattered. So, while I'm very, very grateful for, all the support, I just share that so that people do know that there's tons of celebrities out there that suffer from this too. And they have all the help in the world as well, but it doesn't matter. So with that, I am also a first grade teacher. I've been on maternity leave for almost a year. So I'm still currently on maternity leave. And I did miscarry in between. So my baby, Natalie, is our rainbow baby. And it was a great pregnancy. I had a speedy, quick delivery, which I'm grateful for. And I felt like so different the second time around. Like, I'm like, okay, we know what to do now. We know what to expect. Like, I just want to go home. We came home and literally from the second this little girl was born, like I just was so obsessed with her. She is such an easygoing, like carefree baby. Sometimes you just didn't even know that she was there. Adjusting to, two young kiddos and a toddler that loves her mama, as they all do, was not easy at all. But we made do, and I would say everything was fine with me. I was happy. I went to my 6-week checkup, filled out the Edinburgh. I also filled out the Edinburgh in the hospital as well, but everything was fine. Like, I felt amazing. I felt like I was a super mom because I just made it to the OB on time with my baby and got my other daughter to daycare. So when I was filling out the Edinburgh, I was being honest, but again, like I did not have it right after you have a baby, which was another thing that I thought it was. So come 4 months postpartum, I feel like we started to adjust as a family of four, and my toddler was getting more used to the baby and, mommy and daddy having to separate a little bit. I had a horrible panic attack, the first one I've ever had in my life. And I go into more details on my page, but that basically was kind of where it started. This was at like 4 months postpartum, and I never quite felt the same again after that. And that started to lead me into like not being able to sleep at night, which, mind you, my baby was sleeping at 3.5 months through the night. And so was mama. So then there was one day, my toddler was in daycare. It was a normal, typical morning. The baby was down for a nap. She woke up and we were playing downstairs on her tummy time mat, and out of nowhere, this horrible, horrible thought came across my mind. And I won't go into detail, but it scared me to the point where I had to like move back because I could not believe that this just even like occurred to me. And that was kind of what really did me in. These thoughts kept just reoccurring over and over again. It literally took over my mind, and it kept me up at night. I went from getting 8 hours of sleep to maybe 2 hours of sleep, because during the quiet time was when this thought would keep popping in my head and scare me.
I'm
And
gonna
then,
I'm just going to interrupt just for a second to talk
yeah,
about intrusive thoughts,
yep.
because so many moms have them. And as a postpartum psychosis survivor, I'm trying to listen to my kids. I have no idea what they're doing right now, except yelling downstairs doing something. But the difference between the intrusive thought and the hallucinations, just talk about that for just a second, because it's so important to know, and for moms to know, that it's okay to reach out. It's okay to, talk about it to someone you trust and know.
Yep.
Um, but the fact that this thought scared you, um,
Yes.
is really the differentiating
Hmm.
factor between either any of the perinatal mood disorders and postpartum psychosis,
Yep.
because there's a very fine line. Um, but so important to know to get the help, regardless of how you're feeling, what you're thinking, because these mood disorders are very treatable.
Yep.
So sorry to interrupt that, but I just wanted to
No,
point that out.
yeah, that's a great point. And honestly, at the time, again, goes back to the education. I did not know what this was. I thought I was going crazy, which we hear from moms all the time that say the same thing. And like I said, I was Googling schizophrenia, because I'm like, has to be something. This is not normal. And I just kept going through things like, this is not postpartum depression. I've been fine for 4 months and 4.5 months postpartum. And I thought I knew what postpartum depression was. And I was so wrong. And honestly, second child, I've never even heard of postpartum anxiety, which is another problem. I've never heard of intrusive thoughts. So this just got worse and worse. The no sleep obviously added to the anxiety. I, had so many symptoms. I'm love working out. I had no desire to wake up and work out anymore. Um, I just was like not motivated. I stopped, like, I didn't want to eat anymore, which is not like me either. And for about a month, like, I suffered in silence. I, was telling my husband that, like, I just still feel weird after that panic attack, but like, I didn't tell him about this intrusive thought that I was having. Because like you said, like, what is my husband going to think of me as a mom, as a person? Are they going to take my kids away? Are they going to take me away? Like, and I know other moms, like you said, feel that way and they're scared. Um, but like I always say, your mental health and you matter. And if you need to get help, you need to get help. And it's not going to be like what we think it's going to be. Um, so yeah, it was about a month of this. It just got worse and worse. And this thought just kept coming back at me no matter what I did. And it started to turn into, now I was scared to be with my baby alone, and I was scared to be alone by myself as well. And again, for 4 months, it was never, ever an issue. Um, and uh, my husband, one morning, he was getting ready to go to the gym, and it was a Saturday. I barely slept. I was exhausted. And I came downstairs and he's like, are you okay? And I'm like, no, I'm tired. And I said, I just don't want you to go to the gym right now. Like, I feel weird again. And I just don't feel comfortable right now being home. Um, so that led into a conversation, and he ended up asking me a question that I do not think he was ever expecting my answer to. And again, I won't go into details because I don't want to trigger anyone, but that question really saved my life, because we both knew then and there, like, I needed to get help right away, wherever that help was. And he was Googling on a Saturday where I can turn to, and there was really like no support lines open. It was like 6:30 in the morning. Um, and he finally got through to like a drug anonymous number or whatever. And which was of no help to me. But he was just basically like, go to the emergency room. So we did. And I had a choice when I went there. I can either fabricate or I can be honest. And I knew that if I wanted to get help, which I did, I wanted this to end, mostly those thoughts. I need to be honest. And I was. And I obviously had to get admitted into the psych ward. And that was difficult, obviously. I would say it was even more difficult because my husband had to bring me up there and then leave me there, as you know, as well. And he took it very, very difficult. And to be honest with you, this is how you know that what we went through is horrible because I found comfort in being there. It was a safe haven for me at the time. And I was able to like relax in a way. I was able to sleep. These thoughts were still haunting me, but not nearly as much. And um, I just kept telling him like it's not as bad as it may look. And I do point out in a lot of my stuff on social media that like I don't share that to scare people that like if you're going to be honest, you might end up in the psych ward. I don't share that like to scare people. I share that because if that is your only option of getting help, then that is what you need to do. And I promise it is not nearly as bad as like society makes it be or the TV. Everyone there is there to get help. I was really the only one there for postpartum. Um, but everyone is there to get help in, a different way.
Well, and
And
that's what they don't tell you in birth and baby class is
yep,
that a new mom could very well end up on the psych ward or in the ER with these horrible thoughts. And,
yep,
that's what we advocate for, education, yes, is key, but we need so much more. New moms don't belong on a general psych unit. They don't belong with, I know I was on a unit with where there was other men.
yeah,
Um,
yeah. Mine was
so
mostly men.
yeah, and it's just it's not right. Although yes, we got better, and that's what we needed,
Yeah,
but there needs to be other options in specialty care.
yeah,
Um, so yeah, but I'm so thankful that your husband was able to ask you and knew to ask you that question. There's so many people that reach out to me, and most people that reach out to me are actually the caregivers. They are, or the helpers that are, I have this mom. And sometimes I have to say, have you asked her if she's really, really struggling? Have you asked her this question? I know it's going to be hard.
yeah,
I know you may not be prepared for the answer, but let's see, let's make sure she's safe because that's, our number one goal. We want mom and baby and family to be safe.
yep,
Um, so I'm so glad he was able to ask you that, even though he wasn't prepared for the answer, but
no,
you got the help that you needed.
yes, totally. And that's why I think I'm also very passionate about, like you said, educating significant others and family members because without, I guess, him kind of opening up that conversation and asking me, I feel like I would have just continued to suffer in silence. And that kind of like opened up the floodgates to allow me to be honest because I need help.
Yeah. And the question, I want to go ahead and say the question, let's not refer to it. The question we're talking about for anyone listening or that anyone that's listening to the replay is, are you having thoughts of hurting yourself? Are you having thoughts of suicide or hurting others?
Yep,
Um, because it's not, even though it's a hard question to ask if you're not used to asking it and if you weren't prepared to, but it's not going to put the thought in someone's mind if they weren't having that thought.
and that's the thing because I hear all the time. Um, I was sharing this on my live yesterday that like it blows my mind that we have infant care classes and birthing classes, but why isn't there a class for like these things? Like what could happen? And I know sometimes, I've heard people say that, like, oh, well, we don't want to scare new moms. And honestly, I would have rather somebody give me this class for free and scare me. But at the time, I would have said, oh, okay, these are intrusive thoughts. I remember Christine telling me at this class, they're not real. And this is temporary and this is treatable and all these facts. And that totally outweighs being scared. I mean, you're a first time
And
mom.
knowing where to go to get help, knowing where that
Yes,
support is.
totally. I agree. So, yeah. And not only was it, I'm sure, difficult for him to ask that question, but for me to say yes to that was, crazy. Because I'm someone that, like I said, I've always been happy. Yes, we've all had bad days, but very self-motivated. I'm a confident woman. And like, what the heck is going on with me now? Like, it just was the complete opposite of what I've always been used to about myself. Um, so yeah, from there, I'm in the psych ward. Thank God for the female nurses there because they knew what was going on with me. But it was over the weekend. So I was there for 2 days. They still had no answers. And I had met with a psychiatrist one day. I went over my story again, which was just like, ugh, like the worst, just continuing to repeat this horrible nightmare over and over again. He asked me like a bunch of questions, and finally I'm supposed to be getting discharged, so I hear, and that like took me by surprise. So I go in and I meet with the psychiatrist again, and he basically says that he first makes a joke about, do you want to hear the good news or the bad news, which was not funny, obviously, being of the reason why I was there. But he basically said that, I do not believe that you have postpartum depression. And the reasons why were the exact reasons why I still did not think that I had postpartum depression. So there's that education piece again. So he said that I have always just been a worrier, which is true. I've always worried. I mean, I think we all do. And especially, as a parent, you worry for the rest of your life. But I know the difference between worrying and whatever the heck was going on with me, because that was not worrying. Um, and he said that I did not have a history of depression or anxiety in personally or in my family. That I did not have this with my first daughter, so that it can't be that because it's my second now. And then lastly, he said that, everything was fine for 4 months. And this came out at 4.5 months postpartum. And postpartum depression typically only happens right after you have a baby. So you would think that I would be like relieved. No, I was discharged from the hospital thinking that I was crazier than when I went in. And all I kept thinking was, how are they letting me go home right now? Like, this is horrible. And thank God my husband again, like, was so furious and researching, and it was not easy to find this amazing PMAD center that we have right in our backyard, literally 25 minutes from us. Um, and he only found it by talking to another person at another place that happens to be a therapist there part-time. And that is when he got on the phone with Lisa Tremaine, who is an angel on earth, as you know. And she was like, bring her in right away from the hospital. Like, don't let her go home. Set me up with a therapist. I went there. She hugged me. I felt like I've known her my entire life. Again, I shared my story with a therapist. And when I'm sharing my honest truth, I'm sitting there like, why isn't she like reacting to this? Like, she didn't even move off of her seat. This is not normal. And she just was kind of like, you're having intrusive thoughts. And I was like, what? She's like, yeah, they're intrusive thoughts. They're very, very common with postpartum anxiety. They're not real. They're brought on by your anxiety, your hormones, blah, blah, blah. So that was validating. Like now there was a name for this like crazy stuff that was going on in my head that was not me, that I was kind of like judging myself for. So then I go on and she's like, you're textbook postpartum anxiety, and depression. And the depression really came just because I didn't know this whole time what was going on with me. Um, but once I did, I felt like it was really just the postpartum anxiety, super, super severe. And she gave me the biggest hug and told me, you know, you're in the right place. It's temporary. It's treatable. You're going to get better. And just hearing that meant the world to me. And then Lisa brought me into group therapy that she also has at the center that she founded, which is even more amazing. And she had said to me that I'll never forget, welcome home. And I was like, what does that mean? And then as soon as I sat in group therapy and I heard women sharing their stories, I'm like, I understood what welcome home meant, because for the first time in over a month, I felt like I was home. I was safe. I was not alone in this battle. And I realized how common this illness is. And I had shared with you on the podcast that, you know, in the beginning when I went in, I was this, you know, girl that was just sad and lost. And as I continued to go to therapy weekly and the group therapy, like 2 to 3 times a week, I started to see myself growing as a person again and getting closer to the me that I was before. Um, and I think the group therapy is so important. And that's another piece that's missing everywhere,
Yep.
as you know. And so fast forward, it was still, you know, a bumpy road from there, as you know, that it's a roller coaster ride. I wanted to get better like yesterday, and it doesn't work like that. Um, I was at the point where I would do anything to get better. I'm somebody that does not really ever take Advil for headaches, but I did not care. I chose to go on medicine for the first time. And it took a while to find the right dosage for me. And I was meeting with the nurse practitioner there at the center every 2 weeks to manage that. So I think that's another thing, that when people do go on it from their OBs, it's often not managed. And a lot of times your dosage is going to need to be changed before you may notice a difference.
Exactly.
And that was definitely what was going on with
And
me.
you know, and that's something they don't talk about either is, first of all, the side effects,
Hmm.
and that it takes time.
Yes.
Um, you know, I tell a lot of people, I used to be a home health nurse and I took care of a lot of stroke patients. And, you know, stroke patients are kind of the same. Like they want to be better yesterday. Um, but it's not like that.
No.
It's a process, it's a recovery. And it's the same with perinatal mood and anxiety disorders. It's a process, it's a recovery journey, and it's one day at a time. Just like right now, we're all in this
Yep.
pandemic era, I'm going to say. And it's one day at a time. And I'm so thankful that these centers exist. There's, I think, less than 20 now
Yeah.
across the United States. Um, and it is so very important. Every region needs to have one. I myself have been fighting for 2 years to have one here, and we're nowhere. Um, and now more than ever, I want to be like, and now we need it.
Yep.
Um, so the there's so much involved to advocacy, to sharing, and I'm so thankful that you're willing to share. Um, and I'm so thankful for Lisa and, you know, being a champion and powerhouse in this space. Um,
Hmm.
so yeah, I wish there were more centers like hers.
Yes.
Um, and the power of
And
peer support too.
yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I agree. Because while I love my therapist and it's like talking to a girlfriend now, and it's very validating when you are surrounded with other women that are currently going through what you're going through or have gone through it and are towards the end. Um, you don't feel alone. You know how common it is. You're not sitting there thinking like, I'm horrible because I was thinking this. You hear four other moms thinking the same thing. And
Hmm.
so you're validated, but then you're also, it goes full circle where you're like, I was that mom. And now, like, look how far I've come now. Um, and yeah, I agree. I wish it was everywhere. And that's a dream that I hope that it is um, someday. But so, yeah, so I'm almost at the end. And so, yeah, it was a really bumpy road. And, up and down, of course, but um, I still did not want to be by myself. So for a couple of weeks, I had someone with me at all times. My husband does own his own business and works from home. So he was able to be very, very flexible. Our families like took shifts being with me, which I'm so, so grateful for. But I know that not everybody has that. And I know that that's like a huge issue too, because I think that that's really what helped me heal even quicker. Um, and I continue to go to group therapy. And I would say that I was probably like 80% better, feeling like me, as my dosage of Zoloft was increasing. And I feel like the intrusive thoughts were not happening as often. Um, and I kept hearing about Zelresso at the center. Am I able to talk about that, Kristina?
Yeah.
Okay. Um, so I kept hearing them talk about the Zelresso, which is the first ever IV treatment for women with postpartum depression, anxiety. And Lisa did a whole lot with that. And they were doing it at Monmouth Medical, where the PMAD Center is. Um, and so I was interested in learning more. And Lisa met with my husband and I and, gave us a rundown of, how it works, what it entails. We were able to ask questions. She also brought in another mama that had gotten it already, and she was able to share, I became close friends with her, so I knew where she was. And she was like my go-to person when I was suffering because she kept telling me, like, I was there, you're going to get better. And then she was able to share, how she was after those RSO. So I had a decision to make. Yes, I was getting there. Um, but Lisa was kind of like, don't you deserve to be you as soon as possible. Um, and if you can, like, why not? My insurance covered it, thankfully. And I went into it feeling like I have nothing to lose. If this doesn't work, I'm gonna get there. And if it does, great. So I did go through with it, and I will say that you might hear things like, on the second day of this, I think it's 72 hours, 60, I can't
Mhm.
remember. It's like 2.5 days, I believe, that you stay at the hospital and you get this IV drip. But on like the second day, you'll hear some people say, like, I noticed a difference right away and it completely changed me. That did not happen with me. And I don't know if it happens with everybody, but for me, I was my happy self when other people were around me, because then I felt comfortable. I felt like me again. And I felt like I could be the mom to my kids, especially my baby, because someone was there with me and I felt safe. But they didn't see me when I was by myself. Um, or if I had to like bring the baby upstairs by myself, like that is when I was completely gone. Um, so I didn't have the depression when I got the Zelresso. So maybe that was why it wasn't like, oh my gosh, I noticed a huge difference. So got the Zelresso. It was about 6 days after the Zelresso where I woke up for the first time. And I said to myself, like, I feel like myself again. And I started working out, like my motivation for life and everything came back. It wasn't a struggle to get out of bed, and like I wasn't like looking forward to going to sleep like I had been for the past month and a half. Um, and it was it was crazy that happened. I came home on a Friday, I believe, so I had the weekend, and then that Monday, my husband was typically brings my daughter to daycare, but I started bringing my daughter to daycare during this so that I could avoid being home with the baby alone while my husband brought her. So I just like kind of shifted my life a lot so that I wasn't alone, which is sad that I had to do that. But that Monday, I was like, you can take Kayla to daycare. And I, from there, had no problem being home again by myself with her. It wasn't like even a thought. And yeah, that was 6 days postpartum. I mean, 6 days post Zulresso. So I had a very, very good experience with it. I feel like it just, how I explained it to Lisa was that it lifted this fog that I think we all have when we're suffering with this. And for the first time, I was able to think clearly. And I was finally able to use these coping strategies that my therapist was teaching me, and then that we were learning in group therapy too. That no matter how hard I tried, when those intrusive thoughts came and I tried to use the coping strategies, they just weren't working. It was too powerful and just completely took over my mind. So yeah, that fog had lifted. And that was kind of, I feel like when I really healed, and then it just kind of progressively got better. I will say that it doesn't completely take it all away.
Mm-hmm.
And another mommy friend that had gone to the PMAD center as well, when I had reached out to her, I'm like, are you better now? She had it like suffered from this like 2, 3 years ago, I think. And she's like, I'm better, but I'm different. And I feel the same way, that I'm healed, but I'm different now. And I think that I'm different in a good way, because it's opened up my eyes to so much in life. And not only like this new passion of mine, but also just appreciating things in my life even more. My village that was there for me, that helped me get through this time, my husband, um, my kids, even though they didn't know what I was going through, um, they just were like my motivation to get better. So yeah, that's kind of my story. And now I'm big on advocating.
Absolutely. And like I said, I think it's bittersweet when people reach out and they're like, I want to share. What can I do? Um, because it hurts that, women are still suffering from this. And, births and pregnancies aren't going to stop. So unfortunately, with perinatal mood and anxiety disorders being the number one complication of childbirth, we're still going to see moms suffering, and that's very unfortunate, but it's just the fact of the matter. um, but I'm so thankful that women are so willing to share and advocate and make change. um, Doing Being in this space for the last over 4.5 years, I've just met some of the most passionate, compassionate, and dedicated people um, that just want to make changes. Um, and the progress is slow, but I think we'll get there. And to touch on your point about Zulresso, if anybody's wondering about that, they can, do a little research on Zulresso or Brexanolone. I don't know if centers are still giving it right now. I really don't know. Um, but it's an IV infusion that you can get for postpartum depression. It's specifically for postpartum depression. Um, and yeah, I'm so thankful that you were able to get the treatment that you did and get help and get better, and you're able to share. And also, so many people also ask, you know, and they ask me, I'm sure they ask you too, are you the same person? My answer is no.
Yeah.
because, you know, you go through, it's a traumatic event for so many people. Um, and every story is different, but every story matters. So I'm so thankful that you're willing to share and continue to advocate. And I think I've told you this before, boundaries. I have very, I'm learning about boundaries, but I wish, you know, someone would have talked to me 5 years ago about setting boundaries now,
Yeah.
and choose knowing how to say no, because when you're so passionate and you're so dedicated, it's so easy to get involved in all the things.
Yeah.
um,
Well, because we're helpers.
yeah, yeah, and
Right.
yeah, so I'm so thankful for you and being here and
Yes,
to
thank
share.
you. And it is so true what you just said about like that everybody's story may seem different. And I think that there might be some people listening and thinking that like, well, they didn't experience what I just shared with these thoughts, because not everybody has intrusive thoughts. But
Hmm.
I know that there's a lot of people in our center that basically had, worked so hard to have a baby and had the baby, and there was like nothing, there was no connection. There was a lot of regret, like, what did I just do? And, but like, they don't feel like that's normal to speak out about that, because I think as a
Hmm.
society, and social media doesn't help with that, that it makes you think that you're going to have a baby and that it's going to be this most blissful moment of your life and you're going to have this instant connection and everything's going to be wonderful. And that's not always how it turns out to be. So although that is not, what I experienced, that is another very, very common symptom. Um, and I think that, like Lisa always says, storytelling saves lives. And I think
Hmm.
that, if we all continue to share what we experience, that there's going to be moms that connect with us because they too experienced, not connecting with their baby, and they just want somebody to tell them that you're going to connect with your baby, that this is temporary. And again, like, it could happen to, there's people at the center that have 4 kids. They did not
Hmm.
have this with their first 3, and then all of a sudden they have it with their fourth.
Yeah.
So just like every pregnancy is different, so too is our, postpartum experience as well, and our hormones and
Yeah.
all of that. So yeah, if
Yeah.
anybody on here, or that is watching has any questions about Zaresso or like my experience, feel free to reach out to me. I can only talk about what I did experience at Monmouth Medical, which was a great experience, because we have the center there. So Lisa took good care of us, and my therapist came up and visited me, and we had like an ocean view. Um,
I'm
and
jealous
again,
of that
yeah,
ocean y'all have up there right
you're a
now.
mom when you're looking forward to going to a hospital for 2.5 days to relax. I slept until 9:30 one morning. I can't even tell you the last time I did that.
Oh
I
my
missed
goodness.
breakfast.
Yeah.
So it was like, it was a treat, if you will.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but yes.
And I've met so many people that have been in the psych ward, and they're like, you know, I would check myself back in a heartbeat because it was a break.
Yeah.
Um, my experience was not that. But again, I was extremely outside of reality and I had no clue what was going on.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, we have people in the comments saying, you know, everyone's story is different, yes, but with all common threads. And I have so many people that reach out to me and they're like, I didn't go what you went through, but like, it doesn't matter
Yep.
what, you know, your story matters. Every story matters.
Yep. So
And
true.
it, it, it stories, I'm a big storyteller. I love storytelling. I love when other people share their stories. I love when people reach out to me help them
Yeah.
share their stories. Because storytelling absolutely does save lives. I've seen it. And it matters. So no matter what your story is, it's important. But I think, you know, listeners, if you're watching now, if you're watching later, it's important to know where the help is.
Yep.
Um, and you can reach out to any of us. Again, I'm Kristina Dulaney. I'm all on social media handles, founder of Cherished Mom. You can go get tons of resources. Lisa Tremaine is involved with us with the Bloom Foundation. You can go get resources there.
Yep.
Postpartum Support International is a big resource that has a helpline for many. And of course, if you're experiencing suicidal thoughts, call the National Suicide Hotline. You can
Yep.
call or text. It can be anonymous, I'm sure. So yeah. And again, thank you so much for joining us. For
You're so
everyone
welcome.
that's on, thank you for being here.
Yes.
We're going to go ahead and wrap up, but I hope you will continue to follow along with the Maternal Health and Wellness Network as we have a whole week of exciting speakers and presenters and topics planned. You can see our schedule that's posted on our Instagram or on Facebook too, so check us out. And we have more exciting news and updates to come soon. So thank you so much. Thank you, Jenn. I
Thank you so
appreciate
much
you
for
being here.
having me.
Yes. Bye, you guys.
Bye.